Aloha, everyone. I'm Mateo Estuar, your orientation leader for today's session, MoveIn Countdown with Student Housing Services. Before we get started, I'll be covering some housekeeping items for today's webinar. First, you should be able to hear me clearly. If you cannot, please note that in the chat box so that we may troubleshoot with you. Simple fixes include connecting your audio on the Zoom window, turning up your computer volume, or using external headphones. Second, please use the Q&A function or the chat if you have questions for the presenters or about what was shared. For most sessions, all questions will be saved for the end of the presentation. Finally, after the session, we will be uploading the recording of this webinar to the Visit Days platform in the video section. All recordings will have closed captioning. Now, I would like to welcome and introduce today's presenter, Mr. Kenny Lopez. And with that, I'll turn the presentation over to Kenny.
Thank you, Mateo. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another session with me here about student housing services and getting some last minute questions answered before your student and your ohana comes to campus. So before we get started, I would like to show folks our website, which I think will be able to answer quite a few questions for you all. So I'm going to share my screen very quickly. So our housing website is manoa.hawaii.edu/housing, and this is our homepage here that you'll see on the screen. If you click down, you'll be able to see Fall 2021 MoveIn that has a plethora of new information that was just, this is hot off the press, folks. This was just made active less than an hour ago, where you all can see all new information regarding Fall 2021 MoveIn. In this section, equally, if not more important right now, is our COVID-19 section. I will start with this one. I'm just going to do a quick overview. You'll click on the Learn More. And then you'll be able to click on different guidelines and policies or things that you're looking for. One very important one is obviously our COVID-19 vaccination requirement. All students who are choosing to live on campus with us are required to have completed their vaccination protocol. That means having taken 2 shots of the Pfizer or Moderna plus 15 days, or the Johnson & Johnson single dose vaccine plus 15 days after that. All shots, records or vaccination cards should be updated, should be uploaded to the Lumi site, which we have here next for folks. And that will be the easiest way for your records to be updated, that you are clear to move onto campus. Lumi site is also important because this will also be required for all guests coming to campus. So students can make an account. For guests, you can say sign in as a guest, and you'll be able to show that to us as you are checking in or here to accompany your student to check in onto campus. Health clearance requirements. So the state of Hawaii and UH Manoa do require other vaccinations, specifically TB clearance, MMR, and a few others that are listed here. And you can also go to the Student Health Services website to get more information regarding those. Our guest policy. Our guest policy is parents and family members will be allowed to enter the building to assist your student in moving in. That will be 2 guests or helpers only. So we will be giving you all wristbands. We will go through the health screening process, and then they will be allowed to be in there for that day. You will not, unfortunately, be able to enter the residence hall the following day or days after following your student moves into the residence hall. Out-of-state travel, very important that you follow all state of Hawaii safe travels guidelines in order to be able to be allowed into the residence halls. Our community standards, and then very, very important, face coverings will be required throughout the entirety of our move-in process. So even though you will be outside or in your own personal vehicle, we will ask all occupants to please put on a face covering, face mask, in order to ensure the safety of our staff as well as yours, your ohana, in your vehicle. So please make sure that you're all wearing face coverings. That will also go for any time you are in a residence hall, anytime you are in a building, even though You may be on a balcony or lanai or rooftop, you are still required to wear a face covering. So please make sure that you bring plenty of those. It will be hot, it will be humid, so please make sure if you need to recycle those or put on a new mask that you are able to do so. All right, I'm going to head back to the move-in information. So here you'll see 3 different tabs: move-in information, what to bring, and frequently asked questions. So I'll quickly go to the move-in tab. All right. So every student is required to sign up for a move-in time before arriving on campus. This is a prearranged 1.5 hour window for them to be able to move into our residence halls. If your student can go back to Sign Up Genius and see their time, if for some reason they don't exactly remember, please note that the time that you will see may be reflected in the time zone conversion, to either East Coast, Central Time, Pacific Time. So please note what time you're supposed to check in Hawaii Standard Time. As you'll see, we have move-in times all listed out here. And then below that, you will have pretty specific and helpful information on what to expect and what, for example, what address to put into the GPS when you're arriving to campus. That is 1460 Lower Campus Road. If you click on here, we have a pretty detailed guide that shows individuals how to get to campus from the airport and from different parts of the island. That will be really helpful for folks to be able to get where they have to go. And please make sure that you are indeed joining us via Dole Street, because that will be the main entrance and how you will go in to get your key and go through all the process in this seamless, smooth process. For the window of time, one thing I'd like to add is please make sure that you are arriving at the beginning of your time. Well, it is an 1.5 hour window. That 1.5 hour window is for the entire process to take place, not you have the entire 1.5 hours to arrive to check in. All right. Instructions for loading and then moving in. After you unload your vehicle, you will be asked to relocate your car to a parking structure. So we'll have information for you all there. State traveler restrictions, and then if you for some reason miss your appointments, what you need to do there. I'll click on the what to bring, items that are really important for you to bring to campus. Move-in day, please note that we do have some residence halls that do not have elevators. Those are listed there. If you're shipping personal items to the island, you'll find information there, as well as when you can start shipping items over to Hawaii. Equally as important of what to bring is what not to bring, and that's all listed here for you all. And then at the bottom, we do have some FAQs, frequently asked questions, that we hope will answer some of the commonly asked questions that we get. So just a quick overview, we think this is will help answer quite a few of the questions that you all may have, but I wanted to do a quick overview of this before we get started answering any questions that you all may have today.
Thank you so much, Kenny. We had 2 questions coming about roommates. Can you kind of cover how roommates go, when they'll find out about their roommates, where they can access that information, all those different types of things?
Sure. So there will be 2 ways that you can access that information. One will be your student will receive an email. So unfortunately, we're trying to get that out a little earlier, but we are still trying to modify a few changes, given that we were originally at single occupancy, now we're at double, and we're trying to accommodate as many roommate pairings or requests as possible. So that's why there's been a little bit of a holdup in that process, but that information will be available today at, I believe, the end of the day, Hawaii Standard Time. Student will receive an email, and it will also be available on our housing website. Sorry, it will be populated on our housing website, so the student will be able to click on it, log in, and find out their information for the roommate. And again, that information will only be available if the student authorized for their information to be released to their roommate. So if Leslie and I were going to be roommates, but Leslie did not authorize her information to be released, I will not see her information. So that's important to know.
How do they know if their information is being seen by the other person, or if they authorize them to be able to see?
Yeah, unfortunately, there's not really a way to do that at this point. That was all filled out in the housing application when they applied March, April, May. So unfortunately, it's a little late for that to go through and modify that information, unfortunately.
Perfect. A couple questions about the health clearance requirement. So how do they know, how does a student know that all their documents have been received and all of their clearance documents have been reviewed and approved and all those different things? Is there a way for them to check that status?
I actually don't know, but my suggestion for folks is to communicate with the health center, health services, to see if that information has all been received. So that is the easiest and most effective way to make sure that all your documentation is received, is good, is current, is updated, to make your move-in process seamless.
Because housing, go ahead, Kenny, sorry.
No, please.
Because housing gets that information from health services, right? So students submit all their stuff to health services, their shot records, their, any of that documentation, and then health services are the ones who confirm to housing that a student has completed everything.
Correct.
So if you want to make sure that you've done that, is to contact health services.
That is correct. So you will not need to show us, and we actually cannot confirm or verify any information in housing at all. So it needs to go to the medical professionals to confirm that you are indeed TB cleared, COVID cleared, and MMR cleared, and all those other vaccinations before you can move in. So we do have the religious or medical exemptions, but that again has to go through student health services.
Perfect. There's a question in here, and I just want to say it out loud. So somebody said, can we start living in the residence hall the day we move in? So yes, welcome, right? Welcome to campus. You can start living there and staying the night and all those things. You take possession, if you will, of the room whenever you check in with housing. Is that right, Kenny?
When you've officially checked in, you will, part of the process is filling out a few different forms, and then you will get a key. So once you get that key, you can stay there as long as you want. Well,
hopefully, until move out, right?
Until move out, yes.
Okay, now I know that we had this last year regarding ride shares, Lyfts or taxis or Ubers or whatever. What would be the process? Is there a different process for using a ride share versus a personal vehicle?
There really isn't. So once you get to, you would still type in or give Uber the same address, that 1460 Lower Campus Road. You will come to the first check-in station, which is where I will be and Leslie will as well. You will come to our station. We will get you out of the Lyft or Uber, taxi, any of that, to avoid you from getting extra charges. So we will unload you there. We will go through the process, and then we will have an internal shuttle that will take you through the rest of the process.
Great. Some specific questions that we'll run through. So there's a person who's in a 4-4 in Freer. They have a private bathroom, and they want to know, does the university provide toilet paper?
In those rooms, we do not. So you and your roommates will be responsible for that, because that is a private restroom, because that is inside of your suite door. So you are responsible for both the toilet paper as well as cleaning the bathroom.
And a good thing to set up in advance with your roommates when you move in about who's going to be providing toilet paper, if you're going to have a schedule for who buys it, when, because that could be a common roommate concern, is that somebody's buying all the toilet paper and everybody else is using it all, right? So be aware to hook that up with your roommates. Now, Kenny, do they have to have their student ID card when they check into housing? Is that something they have to have before? Can any photo ID work?
We just need a photo ID. So anything works. If you do have your Mānoa 1 card, that would be ideal, but not required. If you do not have your Mānoa 1 card, those will be distributed the 6 days of move-in at the Halealoha Courtyard. There will be a table and a tent available where they can pick those up.
Oh, that sounds very easy. Okay, so you can just wait till after move-in, then go to the table and get your ID card there.
And that's for folks who have uploaded their picture virtually and did all of those other things. So the cards will be printed and available for you there.
Okay, and they can do that, if I remember correctly, you can go to the ID's website, the campus center, and then student ID website. They have directions on how to do just what Kenny was telling.
Correct.
Let's see. If our move-in time is set for 11:45, for example, is that when we should show up at the registration and screening, or should we get to that earlier so we can start moving in right at 11:45?
So 11:40, if your appointment is 11:45 to what's an hour and a half after that, to 1:15, let's go with that for simplicity's sake. We ask that you show up to Lower Campus Road at 11:45. You'll get to station number 1 shortly around that time, and then that will give us time to go through that whole screening process, give you your room key, move up to your residence hall, allow you to unpack, unload, move stuff up, and then do all of that process. So we ask that you get to us, to the first station at 11:45.
Interesting question. I don't think I've heard this question before, so props to this person who put it in there, but they're asking, can your individual room door be left open as long as people wear masks and distance as if it was a public space?
Absolutely. So in your specific room, if it's move-in day, right? So both me and my roommate are moving in at the same time, and we have 2 guests ourselves. We would encourage, because it is a space made for 2 individuals, that folks do wear masks. Once it is just me and my roommate, we are not required to wear masks in our room, because again, the room is made for 2 individuals.
We love having your room open, invites people to come in, but just be aware that you want to also be aware of your personal belongings at all times. So, being aware of that when you have your room open as well.
Absolutely.
What are the hours of student housing?
I don't know what specifically they're asking. That's a loaded question of our housing office. Our hours are 8 till 4 or 7:45 to 4:30, depending on which office you're looking for. Student housing as a whole, our residence halls don't close. Our students are adults. We will treat them as such. So students can come in and out as they wish.
And if they need assistance after hours, there's information in each building, right, about how to get that assistance. Absolutely. And what that might be entail. And you guys still do meetings at the beginning of the year, so residents can kind of learn more about that. So more information in those sessions as well. Okay, if we ordered with OCM, at what point will we receive our linens and welcome boxes?
Absolutely. So when you get your room key, then you will have a slip of paper that says, here are the instructions and the times that you can pick up your OCM linens. So you would just follow those instructions and we will get those available for you all. They're actually in the process of unloading those right now. So they are here waiting for your arrival.
Perfect. A question in here about, can they come to campus before move-in to walk around and look around campus? Yes, absolutely. Just make sure you're adhering to the COVID requirements, because everybody is supposed to do that when they come to campus. So you should still be checking in on Lumi's site. You should be wearing your face covering if you're walking around indoors. And we ask that you still adhere to physical distancing and not gathering in crowds if you're outdoors. Well, indoors too, but outdoors is forgotten sometimes. Now, as far as go ahead.
We ask that please, while it may be very tempting, please try not to come into our residence halls if at all possible. We have a lot of staff still or here currently for preparing the buildings, cleaning the buildings, moving things around. So we ask that you please not try to sneak into the buildings if you see the door open or anything like that, for your safety as well as our staff's, to make sure that we do have the time to get your building ready for your arrival on campus next week.
Right, because most of the buildings on campus are open. You can walk in the door, you can look around, look at classrooms, labs, things from the windows or whatever. But student housing is not open to people who are not residents of student housing. And since you or your student has not checked in yet, you're not yet a resident. And so you're not able to go in those buildings until you are one, until move-in. Let's see, if we have been fully vaccinated from out of state, do we have to quarantine as well or get tested?
That is a interesting question. So we will kind of talk through the process. So I would encourage everyone to please look at the hawaiicovid19.com website. That is the most updated information regarding COVID policy for the state. But currently the process is, if you have received 2 COVID vaccinations in the United States, and you have your vaccination card uploaded to Safe Travels, you are able to get an exemption and able to avoid quarantine or having to test again. However, please note that that is a state of Hawaii requirement. That is not a university requirement. So you may come to us and say like, well, I did all of this. If the state does not approve you, we are not able to do absolutely anything for you. So please make sure that you follow everything on that end. So read all the websites, all that information to do that. If you are coming from the West Coast, most large airports do have a pre-COVID clearance station, which Leslie and I used about a month ago at San Francisco Airport. That was very helpful. We had everything uploaded to Safe Travels. We were able to show it to the United folks, and we got pre-clearance in order to zoom through the airport very quickly on arrival to the island.
And Kenny, am I understanding correctly? It's kind of like a 2-step process. You first have to get into the state of Hawaii, and that is a state Safe Travels program. So you getting into the state, doing the quarantine or the testing or the vaccination gets you into the state. They have to approve it. You get a QR code. The state says on your app, okay, you're good to go. And then you also have to get onto the university. So the housing has documentation from health services that you've done everything correctly. So yes, it is a 2 separate process, but we have to follow that. That's the rules that have been basically established for this year. So do you have to do both? One does not communicate with the other, unfortunately. You need to do both. And if you do not do the Safe Travels and you're required to quarantine, do know that you cannot quarantine on campus. So it's absolutely crucial that you do the first step, and then while doing that, you also submit your documentation to health services for approval to then be cleared to move on to campus.
And so the important distinction there is parents have to do part 1, students have to do part 1 and 2.
Mm-hmm. So yes, so even parents, if you have not, if you're told by the state or your ohana, whoever's helping you move in, if you haven't done the Safe Travels, you're technically supposed to be in quarantine. You're not supposed to be moving somebody into on campus. So if the person helping you move in has not done the Safe Travels, then we won't be able to allow them to help you move in that day either.
And I know we've been talking quite a bit about vaccinated folks. So for folks who may not be able to get vaccinated or chose not to get vaccinated, you must do a negative PCR test 72 hours prior to arriving on island. And that is, again, a state requirement. So it is quite convoluted because you have to make sure that you do the math correctly in order for the test to be approved. And it isn't just not any PCR test, it has to be from an approved site. So again, that hawaiicovid19.com website has a list of all approved testing sites in every state that you need to click through in order to determine where you can get tested to be cleared once you arrive on island. Anything you want to add there?
No, sorry, I was just going to move to the next one.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. So there's a question in here about what is the last day to submit their own ID picture. Do you have that date, Kenny?
I do not.
Okay.
No.
We would recommend that you go to the ID office website and inquire with them. If you don't submit your ID picture and you're a little nervous about, okay, did I submit it in time and then I won't be able to pick it at the table, you can also just go to the ID office. So the ID office will take your picture there and give you an ID there. So you don't have to worry if you didn't get in time, if you haven't done it yet, They're open business hours, just like housing office is. So you can always go there and get your ID picture. It's not necessarily one or the other. It's important to know that there's still time to do at least go in person.
I will add one thing, Leslie, before you move on. For everyone who is on this call today, just a reminder, Friday is a state holiday. It is statehood day. So a lot of offices may have restricted or closed that day. So please make sure that you're planning accordingly. So you're not expecting to do a lot of these errands or tasky things on Friday when offices may be restricted and or closed that day. So please be mindful of that.
That's a great point, Kenny. I think you always remember that, which I'm so appreciative of. Friday is not this Friday, but next Friday is statehood day. So the university is closed. Housing are lucky. Employees in housing are lucky where every year they are working on a university holiday. So if you try and do something with the ID office, with commuter services, with the registrar, financial aid, all of those offices are closed on that day. So you are unlikely to be able to get service. So recommend you going the day before or waiting till the first day of school, which is the 23rd. There was a question in here about when do you anticipate that those roommate assignments are going to go live, Kenny? I know that you said that housing is still working through those because of some changes that have happened recently. So what anticipation is like the anticipated date on that?
The last information I got right before we started was at the end of the day, so that would be around 4:30 today.
Okay. Oh, that sounds great. Okay, so potentially today, if not tomorrow, right? Yeah.
But hopefully today, we're hoping.
Yeah. What is the assistance look like at MoveIn? Are there volunteers or other students available to assist people with moving in larger objects, heavier items, things like that?
Yeah, we will have some folks available. We also do have some athletic teams that have assisted, have volunteered to assist. But I would just be patient and ask to see if there's someone who can assist if larger items or heavier items need to be brought into the residence hall. In traditional years, we do have a plethora of folks available, but this year, because of COVID, we wanted to restrict those numbers a little bit more.
And you still use carts? Are carts available for people to use?
Yes. So we
So
do
a lot
have,
of times people just load up the carts and then you roll it in, use the elevator, you're straight up to your room.
so we have large laundry carts that are easy to carry quite a large quantity of things into the residence halls. Yes.
Perfect. A question in here, after check-in and move-in, can student and parents stay on campus and explore? Will the student spend that first night then in their room?
So parents are absolutely allowed to explore, walk around campus and do their own thing, absolutely totally fine. If you do return back to the residence hall, let's say that you've unloaded your first batch of things that you brought in, you run to Target, Walmart, Costco, fill in the blank, and return back to campus, please note that you will not be able to pull up directly to the front of the building. You will have to go through the line. You just let us know and then we'll direct you where to go. Once you get to the building, we ask that you please be patient because first priority will be given to the folks who are in that time block of window to use elevators, stairs, whatever, to get their items up to their room. So we ask that folks please be patient with us as they do that. From the first night on, students will have a large amount of different structured events for them. So students should spend the first night in the building. We will have, as Leslie mentioned, those first floor meetings, going to the cafeteria, eating as a floor together, some of those things to help them get acclimated and adjusted to campus. We do have our what we call HWEL, Housing's Week of Welcome. So events will start that Monday night and will run through Saturday.
When does somebody helping a student move in, when does that guest policy go into effect?
Sure. So we're not going to go say it's midnight, get out. We're not going to do any of that. But if you try to come in that following day, we will unfortunately not allow you to come into the building.
And just as a heads up too, I mean, after your window closes for move in, there's other students trying to move in. So I think I can speak for Kenny to say, please don't tie up the elevators unnecessarily as you're moving around the building because other students are trying to use their hour and a half, and they might need to get up to the 12th floor or something like that. And so just being aware that even though your window has closed, a lot of other students are trying to move in. And so if you're using the elevators a lot to get in and out of the building constantly, that's hampering some other students from moving in on that time.
Absolutely.
Let's see. And I encourage you to, you students who are logging in today, to take advantage of these program options that are happening during this time. I know it's great to see your family and they're leaving and they're doing different things, but these are some of the key times to meet new people and potentially, have some shared experiences with future friends. And so really taking advantage of these housing programs, which unfortunately, we haven't been able to do for a bit. So it's nice to be able to have this opportunity. Okay, so let's see. Is another specific question, in the Hale Aloha rooms, can you hang a mirror on the closet door or the main door?
You can on either one of those. We ask that you get 3M command strips, things like that, in order to avoid damaging walls, doors, things like that. You can put it in a variety of different places. So the majority of the times I have seen them in the back of the main door or on the closet doors.
If you're hanging something that requires some sort of screwdriver or hammer, it's probably going to leave a damage. So please don't do that, because we don't want holes and things like that in the wall. So
yeah, and please don't use silly putty or some of those other devices to put things on the wall. Please use what we call blue tape or painter's tape. That is the most effective way to put things up on the wall, or 3M strips that have been tested and approved to cause very minimal damage on walls and be very strong.
perfect. Okay, so we kind of just answered this question, but there's a question here about the guests after move-in. So once their move-in window stops, yeah, housing is gonna, you're still kind of moving in, you're still kind of doing stuff. So guest policy might not be as closely monitored, but starting probably the next day or after that, you shouldn't be having anybody who does not reside in housing with you in your residence hall, because that would be against our guest policy.
That is correct. And any guest who is coming into the building will get a wristband. So again, and that will be at our station. So you will get, each student will get 2 wristbands for the 2 guests. So there will be a staff member at the door checking wristbands to make sure that you are authorized to be in that building. Again, because of COVID procedures and policies, we do have to make sure that we are pretty strict with that 2-guest policy.
There's a question in here about Hale La Lima. Will they be upperclassmen? Is it all first-year students? What is the general breakdown of Hale La Lima?
Sure. La Lima is all first-year students. So this is the largest freshman class the university has ever admitted. So we do have all freshmen up in La Lima this year.
Oh, great. Okay, so do they get a physical key or a card key? It's a card key, right?
It's a card. Yes, it is a card.
And what happens if they lose their key?
Sure. Please, 2 things. 1, do not give your card to a friend, to your roommate, to somebody else. That card is directly connected to your name, and if something does go bad with that key, it is your responsibility. So please make sure that you keep that in your possession. If you do lose your key, well, let me backtrack. 1, please do not put your room number on there in a permanent marker. Do not do anything like that that denotes what that is. For the case, if you do lose it, drop it, something like that, all keys are identical, so a person may not be able to determine where it belongs to, and that's kind of the point. If you do lose your key, we have community desks throughout campus by areas where you can go and get a key replacement. So we encourage folks to please do that. We know it's inconvenience, you're like, oh, I have to go down to do it. Please just do it for your safety, your roommate safety, and our community safety, because that is how you get into the front doors, elevators, stairwells, bathrooms, all of that is with your room key. So we strongly encourage that you do let us know as soon as possible when you do lose your key. so that we can turn that key off and give you a new key.
And I will remind you all that if you don't know, in the community standards, it is against the community standards to loan your key to anybody, to give your key to anybody. It is assigned to you. So definitely do not give it to anybody else, even if it's an Ohana or somebody else helping you move in. It is assigned to you. So you want to make sure that you hold on to it. Let's see. Okay. Does UHM Student Housing Services resident travel form need to be completed for initial out of state arrival or only for later trips out of state?
That is the latter, for any trips out of state. If Safe Travels is in place, so that's a returning student. So we will ask you to log your trips in order for us to make sure that you are cleared to be returned back to campus. Yes. Please.
Okay. Okay. So that's for returning students. New students coming in don't have to worry.
When you initially come onto campus, you're good. You don't have to do that. If you come to campus and then a week later, you're taking a trip to California for a family wedding, you will be required to document that trip.
Okay. There's a question again about Mānoa One Card. Yes, you can go in person. The ID card office is in Campus Center. They have a website on the Campus Center website. If you just go to the main Mānoa website and type in student ID card or Mānoa One Card, whatever you want to type in, both are likely to get you to the office website, and they can give you more information about picking up your card, taking a picture, uploading a picture, or whatever you need to do. I'm sure you'll be able to find all the answers that you need in that. But they are a campus office, so their hours are campus hours. So that typically is 7:45 to 4:30 Monday through Friday, except for university holidays. And then on Friday, not this Friday, but next week Friday, we have a state holiday. So just being, again, aware of that. All right. Question, maybe we can go over face coverings again real quick, Kenny, because there is a question about, do we have to wear face coverings outside?
State of Hawaii rule currently states that you do not need to wear a face covering outside. If you are comfortable wearing one, I absolutely encourage you to do so. I still wear mine outside just to be safe, but you are not required to wear it outside. The only caveat to this question right here is, so we are in Hawaii, we have a lot of outdoor spaces in our buildings. So for example, if you live in Halealoha, we have a rooftop on the top of the building, gorgeous 360 views of a lot of things. You have used your key to come into the building. Therefore, you are inside of a building, so you should be wearing your face covering. So again, all times that you are inside of a building, you should be wearing your face mask. That is whether you go into the restroom just across the hall from you, you're sitting out in the hallway talking to your neighbors, anything like that, you should be wearing a face covering, and that also does apply for parents and families, things like that. All events that are larger numbers will require face covering. So staff will instruct you, even if they are outside. We will be instructing folks to wear face covering.
Perfect. I just added in the chat too, if you are attending any of our in-person new student orientation events, even though they are outside, we do require that you wear a face covering. So we'll have, and we encourage you to go to the Week of Welcome website because all of those events are there. They're going to be super, super fun, but we do require that you use face coverings because there'll be a large group of students. So that's why it's important to have that there. There's a question in here about guests. So can we bring outside friends to our dorm room?
If your outside friend lives on campus and is an active resident, yes. If your outside friend goes to Chaminade or your outside friend is a family member from fill in the blank place on island, no. So your outside friend needs to be an active resident to be able to come into your residence hall room.
And this is a common thing that happened last year. So it's really important for students to remember that they are responsible for their guests. And so because guests are not yet permitted in student housing, the student is responsible for that. So you have to be the one to say, no, sorry, cannot have guests at this time, because we have to make sure that our community is as safe as we can make it for our on-campus residents.
And to close the loop on this one a little bit further, it's also important that if your friend lives in Freer Hall, you live in Mokihana, that you are coming downstairs outside of the building to get your friend and walking your friend up to your room. So your friend cannot just enter the building and come up to your door. You have to let them in. So they have to be escorted if they do not live in that building.
Now, there's a specific question in here about shipping, because we talked about 5 days before move-in. But what if a package is getting delivered early? Somebody said that they had arranged it to be there by the 12th, but now they're saying it's going to get there early. What happens? What can they do to make sure that they're okay?
No, you will be fine. So again, we ask folks to the 5-day window simply to make sure that we don't have a plethora of items just in different places and we just don't have the capacity. We understand that some companies do ship faster than others. You're fine. We just don't have the space to hold things for 3,000 students that arrive 2 weeks early. You'll be just fine.
When do students get their room numbers?
You will get your room number when you check in. So when you go to station number 2 and get your room key is when you'll get your room number.
Perfect. And do residents in Halelalima, do they have roommates?
Yes, they will.
Okay. Let's see. So command strips are okay, as well as packing tape for hanging items. So packing tape is not okay. That will rip the paint right off the wall. It's painting tape, painter's tape.
Yes.
They come in different colors, but largely it's blue. But that's the okay one because that is typically safe for the walls. And then command strips are typically safe for the walls too. You just want to double check if the packaging says, I don't know, permanent hold, do not remove, then let's maybe not get them. But most of the command strips are meant to be removed easily. But no, packing tape should not be used, as well as putty, nails, screws, all of those different things, especially, and also things like hanging from the fire smoked alarm or the sprinkler. Nothing should be hung from those items either. Let's see. If somebody's having things delivered or dropped off, do they have to go through the check-in station or can they go straight to the building and do curbside drop-off?
If they're having items dropped off Monday through Sunday, with the exception of Friday, they will have to go through the traffic route. Friday, because again, as I mentioned, it is a state holiday and no one's moving in that day, they can get curbside drop off. That is totally fine, but any other day they have to go through the whole process. The only the only person outside of that is moving companies. We do have some moving companies that will be dropping things off, and they can go do curbside for folks, for returning students.
And another option, could they just arrange it to be met somewhere else on campus? Is that a possibility? And then you just walk the things back over to housing if you don't want them to have to wait in the traffic pattern?
Absolutely. Dole Street is typically the best place. The bridge right by Freer Hall is a great location as well. So absolutely, there's a lot of places that folks can do that.
Perfect. What types of outlets are available?
The kind that you plug stuff into. Sorry, I'm not
American outlet.
The good ones. I don't know specifically what types are. Like there's the 3-prong ones.
3-prong?
Yeah.
And are there limited? I mean, are there any buildings that have kind of a weird setup that we should know about, or?
No. Halealoha they're right in the middle of the room. So what we ask is if students, extension cords are not allowed, but they can do surge protectors. We strongly encourage surge protectors in order to be able to use multiple plugs, things like that. And no USB outlets. We're not that fancy, folks. So we don't have those.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see. Can we bring an additional chair?
You can bring an additional chair. However, the chair that is in your room must stay in your room.
Okay. Yeah, all furniture that is in your room at check-in must stay in your room. Is that right, Kenny?
That is correct.
And if you remove it and it's damaged, then you're responsible for that.
That is correct.
Okay. What are the dining options for students in Haile La Lima?
Yep.
They
So-
heard that the dining hall will be closed. Is that correct?
No.
No.
So Haile La Lima will have to walk to Hale Aloha or Gateway Caf for their meals. Yeah. So those are the two dining halls that we do have on campus. There are other eateries that are close to La Lima, but that do not all take meal plan. So there is a Dunkin' Donuts, there is a L&L, a Panda, Domino's, and a few other places there, but those are not on the meal plan planned. So for that, you will have to go to Campus Center or Hale Aloha or Gateway Cafeteria.
I don't think we have Domino's anymore, do we?
Last time, it's been a while, but they had it.
At Paradise Palms?
Yeah.
It's Crepe Cafe.
Okay.
Anyways, I think it's a crepe coffee situation. But important to watch if you were not present, you haven't watched yet, there is a whole dining services webinar that was last week. And so really, really, really important to watch that because, for example, the providers at Paradise Palms are different from the providers largely at Campus Center and the on-campus dining cafeterias. So be aware of that those are different. You add money different ways, you spend money different ways. And so it's important to know those differences. If you go to the main Mānoa website, and I think it's under student access or housing and on campus or something like that, it does have links to our food services providers that you can get more information on that there, or just watch the NSO presentation. It's really good. This question, does the out of state process apply to coming back for spring semester as well?
It does. So all of your keys will be active through the end of December for fall semester. So we will communicate with students on how they will get their key for the following semester. So yes, that is accurate.
And again, important to keep track of the Hawaii state rules because we can't control that. So that access to our state generally is managed through the safe travel. So you'll want to keep updated on all of that. And that actually reminds me, we were talking about face coverings earlier and on-campus rules and things like that. Do remember that a lot of that is directed by the state. So we have to follow what the state tells us that we also have to do. So it's important now to get used to following the local updates on what the state is doing with COVID protections. So all students are expected to follow those as well, unless specifically directed that they don't have to. So just being aware of that. And sometimes the housing COVID guidelines are more strict than the state guidelines because of the fact that we're housing several hundred students. So we have to sometimes implement stricter guidelines in order to ensure that safety as much as possible. Do you have anything you wanted to add on that, Kenny?
That is completely accurate.
Okay. And also important to remember that following those, because for example, last fall, and we don't have any reason to believe that it's going to happen again this fall, but last fall we went into a secondary lockdown after things had been opened up. So we had to communicate that with all their students, and the students had to be aware of that and follow those new Hawaii guidelines as well. So just being very aware of that. Our university is very active in communicating that with you proactively, but it's important for the students to also be aware of those things so that we can help everybody be safer. Kenny,
I'll add
go ahead.
to that really quick, Leslie, is all of that communication does go to the student. So parents, unfortunately, you will not be in the loop in a lot of that communication. So we encourage you to follow local media channels here in Hawaii via Twitter or Instagram or Facebook, whatever means are best for you all to get that information up to date. The Hawaii, Manoa.hawaii.edu website also does update that, the policies and procedures for the campus. The housing website will also do that for housing itself and will communicate actively and regularly with students. So they must be checking that email. We don't just email for the funsies of it. It's typically with important information for them to know to keep themselves safe and in good standing with the university.
Perfect. Now, some more specific questions. One is, are the Hale Aloha residence halls co-ed floors?
They are. So
Okay.
the floors are co-ed in Hale Aloha, yes.
Okay. And then I'm just gonna hit you with a bunch
Go for it.
here. How
Go
about
for it.
Hale Kahavai? Will they be rooming with upperclassmen or their first year students? What does that look?
Kahavai was for our late students, so it will be a mixture.
Okay. Let's see. What about the clearance measurement between the floor and the bed in Hale Aloha? This is a popular question. We get this a lot.
It is a very popular question. The beds are adjustable, so you can, the beds can be moved to a variety of different levels. So you can store items like the 3 plastic storage bins, suitcases. You can store a lot of those items under your bed comfortably.
Okay. Now, these are for the buildings with common bathrooms. Are there bathrooms on every floor?
Yes,
Okay.
there are multiple bathrooms on every floor.
Okay. And then what happens if they don't arrive during the move-in dates? How do they move in after the fact?
Sure. After the fact, so you will need to email ResLife, RESLIFE at hawaii.edu. Specifically once you know what date you're moving in, and we can give you instructions or guidance on how to check in.
Perfect. Now, is the tuition for housing every semester, or is the price that they were given now for the first and the second semester? What is that?
The standard rate is about $6,300, and that is for the academic year, so divided up in 2.
Okay, and that does not include dining services.
That does not include dining. That is strictly for the room part.
Okay. Does Johnson Hall have co-ed floors?
They are indeed co-ed floors, yes.
Are there any single sex
No.
floors? Okay.
A lot of floors will be heavily female because we do have a lot more women on campus, but no, there are not.
Okay.
So something else to add, all of our bathrooms are semi-private bathrooms, which means it's same as your house. You walk in, you lock the door, everything you need will be in that space for you. So we no longer have the shower or gym bathrooms, or they used to be called gang style bathrooms. Those no longer exist.
Okay. What about water stations? Are there water stations on the floors?
There are not. Those can be found on the first floor.
Okay. And the showers on each floor, the bathrooms on each floor, do they have locked doors, or are they curtains? Do they have hooks or a small bench to place your towels or shower caddy?
The showers themselves do not have locks because, again, as I mentioned, you lock the door and everything in there is yours and yours alone. So there will be benches, hooks. It depends on which residence hall you're referring to, on what items will be available for you to use.
Perfect. Question in here, if parents are visiting again in 2 weeks after move-in, what is the procedure to visit their students?
There is no procedure. Your student can come down and you can go and explore. You may not go into the residence hall, unfortunately.
What about, can they go into the cafeteria and have lunch?
You can, yes. So the cafeteria has a QR code system, so similar to a lot of places in Hawaii that do require information for contact tracing. So you will be required to put the names and phone numbers of individuals. So that will be one way that they do that, but you will be able to go into the cafeteria, explore campus, but you will not be allowed in the residence hall.
Do remember though that if you're coming onto campus, even as a guest, you have to do the Lumi site check-in. Every single person that comes on campus, whether they're employees, students, or visitors, they do have to go to the Lumi site check-in. That link is available from the main Mānoa website. There's a red bar at the top that talks about COVID-19. Clicking on that, it'll take you to the Lumi site app, but everybody has to do that. And so if you are coming to visit, you need to do that before you come. Question just came in about, can parents eat in the dining halls? Yes, parents can eat. Anybody really can eat in the dining hall as long as they're paying and as long as there's space and you like what they're serving, all of those different things. But yes, you can eat in the dining halls.
Let's see, I'd just like to mention one thing before because we're getting to the end of the time. one of our station that we will be staffing, station number 1, will be requiring a lot of information from students. So please be prepared to show these documents. So specifically, we ask that you have a picture ID available and easily readable, readily available when you arrive to campus. That you have your safe travels handy, and that safe travels will be required for everyone who will be entering the residence hall. So that's for the student as well as their 2 guests. Your sign-up genius, where you made the account for what time you will be checking into the building. Take a screenshot of that and have that available, because we will be asking for that as well. We will also be doing the health screening. So we'll be taking your temperature and doing all of that jazz as well. So we ask that folks please be prepared, that especially that first station, we will be asking for a lot of things. So please pack accordingly to make sure those things are easily available for you all.
And will they also have to share their Lumi site or no?
Yeah, Lumi site as well. Sorry, yes, that's an additional one. Yes.
I just put it in the chat, those 5 things: your picture ID, your safe travels. And again, that's everybody in the party has to have their safe travels. Sign up genius confirmation for the student, health screening for everybody. That's temperature, things like that. And then Lumi site check-in for everybody in the party. So remembering that. Is safe travels the same as clear pass?
No.
So clear pass can be approved through safe travels. I know that there's a section in safe travels where they have clear pass, but I'm not 100% sure on that, because that's the state program. So I would make sure that you're double checking through the safe travels website that everything is cleared on your system, more so for you don't want to get to the airport and then it's not approved. So whatever the airport takes for that safe travels, that's really will work, right, Kenny? If the airport is it. I would also say too, from personal experience, traveling back from San Francisco with Kenny, my stuff was actually not approved at the beginning. My vaccination information wasn't being accepted through the Safe Travels website. For some reason, I have no idea to this day why, even though I put it in 18,000 times. So I would just tell you, be patient, that the state really is working with people. So I was luckily able to get it cleared in San Francisco at that United check-in station. But had I not done that, I would just get in the line. Once you arrive in Honolulu, you can't miss it, because they literally stop you. When you get to that point in Honolulu Airport, everybody with a wristband will go to one side, people with no wristband go to the other side, and you get in a line to be checked by the state officials. So just following those things, but not being worried if your stuff isn't automatically approved in the app, because that could happen. Happened to me, it happened to a colleague of ours. Do parents need Lumi site? Yes. Anybody who comes to campus has to complete the Lumi site check-in. When you go to either the website or the application, you have the thing that says a visitor check-in, and then it takes you to a login page and you would do that. Otherwise, there's a UH login that you would use, but you don't have that because you're not a UH student. So that would be different. What is the number for health screening? So in the chat, I put 5 things. The health screening is where we're taking your temperature at, and I'm doing this because it's a temperature gun. There's a temperature screening as a part of that check-in. So that's what that number 4 is referring to. There's an on-site brief health screening that everybody has to do before they're able to come into student housing. Is there a laundry room in Hale La Lima?
Yes, there is. There's a laundry room in every one of our residence halls.
Perfect. And we are out of questions.
That could be in the basement or the roof, but there is a laundry facility in every one of our residence halls.
Perfect. And the laundry company is?
Wash. And
they can load money electronically.
That is correct. So you can download the app, or you can buy a physical card. I encourage the app. It's much easier, and you don't have to pay for the card, where you can load money on just like you would for your Starbucks app.
Perfect. Starbucks app. So perfect. Okay, well, we are out of time and we are actually out of questions. So Mateo, I'm going to turn it over to our orientation leader. Mateo, thank you all
so much for your questions and sticking around with us today.
Thank you all for joining us today for this presentation. We hope that you gained some helpful information from Kenny. If you have further questions or questions that were not discussed, please email your orientation leader or nrwo@hawaii.edu for assistance. As mentioned, this webinar will be published on the NSO platform, so please visit that page for the recording, as well as links or documents mentioned by today's guests. Mahalo.